So welcome to today's webinar with Donna Maria. She is an amazing human being, and I'll just read a little bit about her bio. Donna Maria is an attorney, author, podcaster, certified entrepreneur, mentor, and the founder and CEO of the Indie Business Network, which is an entrepreneurial training and mentoring company that helps creative entrepreneurs build a profitable business that makes us happy, hopefully, and successful, and can generate income for life, which I love that. I met Donna Maria years and years and years ago, 25 years ago we met. So we've been weaving in and out of each other's world over those years. Donna Maria joins us today to go over MoCRA, which is the new cosmetic legislation that was passed in December. So Donna Maria, I'm going to let you take the floor and begin with just giving us an overview of cosmetic history here in the United States.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Jade. It's so funny that you mentioned we've known each other for a hot minute, haven't we? Yes, we definitely have. So thank you everyone for joining. This is going to be a high-level overview. Jade is actually going to interview me, so she has some specific questions planned, and I'm super excited to answer those. And then if we have any time at the end, of course, we'll, Jade, I think, fit questions in if we have any time. So by way of background, for those of you who make any sort of cosmetic, and you probably, I'm sure you already know that the FDA regulates cosmetics under the cosmetics laws, which are passed by Congress at the federal level, and a few states have their own laws for cosmetics. Many of the state laws closely track the federal laws. Some of them don't. They are unique unto their own. In particular, Florida and California and a couple of other states. We're not going to get into the state legislation today. We're going to speak to the federal legislation because it applies the same way to everyone. So the first cosmetics legislation at the federal level became law, oh gosh, so long ago. I think it was 1934, maybe 1938, but some amount of time ago that was quite significant. And so in December 2022, a new law was passed, and it is called the Modernization of Cosmetics Regulation Act of 2022. We call it MoCRA for short. So that's what I'll refer to it as today for purposes of our discussion, MoCRA. MoCRA is the result of pieces of legislative advocacy that I and many other people have participated in, if you can believe it, since 2008. So if you ever thought the wheels of lawmaking turned slowly, you are right, because 2008 was the first time a piece of legislation was introduced at the federal level in draft form to update and modernize the cosmetics laws, 2008. And it took until 2022 to actually get something done. So that is the history. I have been on Capitol Hill several times, as I said, along with other people who are amazing and have really gone to bat to help this law result in some real benefits for very, very small businesses. Jade's going to ask me about those, so you'll learn about what those are. But that's the background and the history. So there's a federal law that actually controls and tells us what we can and cannot do in a general sense when it comes to making and selling cosmetics. And then the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, actually enforces that law. So it is that organization, that administrative body, the FDA, that actually enforces the law and creates the rules and regulations pursuant to that law, because Congress can only be so specific because it's Congress. Like, they don't know the industry, but the FDA does know the industry, and they have closer contact with the people involved in it. So Congress will pass fairly general laws and then tell the FDA, okay, we gave you the skeletal structure. Now you put some flesh on it by communicating with the actual stakeholders, the manufacturers, the people in the industry. You guys come up with all the details and tell everybody all the details, and then we follow the details. And that's generally how the structure works in any lawmaking arena, regardless of what industry it is. So that's the background, and it's very high level, but that's probably pretty much all you need to know about it.
Yeah, thank you. It's so interesting. 1934. So what are some of the top changes that have been made between 1934 and 2022?
Well, there are a couple of top changes. I think one of the first ones is that there is now a requirement that people or companies that manufacture and sell cosmetics in the US must register their companies or their products with the FDA. Now, something very interesting happened. Let me just give you some background on that. And it's not a scary registration. It's not, I mean, it's another thing. Like all small business owners, we don't really need another thing. But as things go, it's not that huge. Right now, or up until literally last month, the FDA had what you may know is the Voluntary Cosmetics Registration Program, which made it voluntary. So you could go in, fill out a little form online, register your cosmetics. Took 5 minutes to do that per your product, and you'd be done and you would be voluntarily registered. Well, since the new law requires registration, I didn't think the FDA would do this, but they have stopped accepting voluntary registrations at all. Like, I literally thought they would just transform the voluntary to the mandatory, use the same system, and not have a break. But now you can't even register, or they've asked you not to register. So that's something to keep in mind. They will eventually, pursuant to the law, require that registration, but right now they don't. So that's the first one. It will be required, but the FDA will work out, again, the meat on the skeletal bones on that. The second one is that, and there are some exemptions from some of these, which I'll talk about too, but I first want to tell you what they are, because we're not exempt from everything. We'll talk about that later. So I want to make it, I want to give you all the requirements and then tell you which ones you're exempt from and why. So hopefully that it's okay to do that, Jade, because we all need to know what the requirements are, even if we're exempt from them, because we may not always be exempt, right? And we kind of need to know what the requirements are. Okay, so the second one is that there is now a requirement to report adverse events that you are made aware of where your products are concerned. So if someone, buys your massage oil or whatever, and they break out, and they send you an email and with a picture, and I broke out or what have you, we are now required to report that. And there is no reporting structure yet, but there will be. As I said, the FDA will come up with all the details, but we are required to report that. And there are different levels of reporting. So for example, some things that are minor may not have to be reported in the same way as some things that are major. What's major, what's minor? We got to put flesh on those bones. But the thing that I want you to be aware of is that, now when we get an email from a customer that says, my skin broke out, and we say, well, it could have been this oil or that oil, or did you do a patch test, stuff like that. We will all continue to do those things because that's part of our customer service. But there will also be a requirement that we actually report that. And let me give you a little bit of background on that, because it does feel kind of big brotherish, doesn't it? It really does. But here's the truth of the matter. Because of the internet, and we all want to use all the benefits of the internet, love making online sales, right? In your bunny slippers kind of thing, which is really nice. The flip side of that freedom is that people can now talk a lot more about the problems they have with the products they buy. So, there's a mom's group or a natural products group or what have you. We've all seen them, where if enough people kind of get together in that little forum and say that such and such a product made their hair fall out, well, it's probably going to eventually find its way to somebody's blog or somebody's news reporting service. And what that has done is it has filtered these issues up to the public in ways that wasn't done 20 years ago. It just wasn't. And so if we want to operate within that realm, we kind of have to be aware that that's kind of the framework. And it's important for us to keep those records, right? So if you do get a report by email, hopefully you're keeping those now, or maybe somebody DMs you or something, keep those by a screenshot, or however, you can, get a free Dropbox account or something that you can keep those reports for your own records. And this is just, as a business owner, something that you just want to do. And, follow up using your regular customer service channels to take care of those sorts of things. But those are two of the more major requirements that have come out of this. And we can talk about some more and maybe during the Q&A, but those are two that I really want you to be aware of as we start off this afternoon.
Wow, that's really interesting. So top question, does this apply, like cosmetic, almost feel like cosmetic needs to be defined, because often when we think of cosmetic, it's like, is it Estee Lauder? Is it, but really we're talking about herbal products, aromatherapy, from massage oils to face creams. So
Yes.
does the law apply to everyone who's making any type of, and the cosmetic being anything applied to the skin, correct?
Correct. Anything that is sprayed, sprinkled, rubbed on, massaged on, there's sort of a long list of things that you can do to apply something to the skin for the purposes of beautification. Is a cosmetic. And we can get into, of course, there's always qualifications, but generally speaking, if you're making a product that people are putting in their hand and massaging on their face, their hair, their skin, their body, their feet, their fingernails, whatever it is, it also includes color cosmetics, so nail polish, eyeshadow, foundation, things of that nature are also included. Shampoo, conditioner, deodorant is another one. Antiperspirant is also included, but antiperspirant is also a drug. And we're not going to get into that today, but I just want you to know there are some products that are cosmetics and also drugs. If they're cosmetics, they fit under the regulatory structure for cosmetics. If they're cosmetics and drugs, they fit under both regulatory structures. We're not going to talk about drugs today, but you do need to be aware that it is possible for products to be both. And as aromatherapists, you probably already know that. So you do need to be on the lookout for that. But yes, a cosmetic is, spray it on, sprinkle it on, massage it on, rub it in. It's a cosmetic. And it's basically, let me just say this too, it's a finished product. Right? A cosmetic is a finished product. So if you sell lavender oil to be used in cosmetics, the lavender oil is not the finished product. Now, it could be the finished product if you're selling it and telling people to put it on their skin. So technically speaking, the cosmetic is the actual end user product that the consumer puts on their face or what have you. So if you are a manufacturer, a distributor, a packer, a private labeler, this applies to you. Now, if you own a retail store and you're buying cosmetics from someone else who's made them and you're selling them in your store, you are not regulated in this way because you're not the manufacturer or distributor of the product. So if you're buying a finished product, whoever made it and sold it to you, they are a cosmetics manufacturer. You are not. So there are some things like owning a salon, like things like that, where you're not involved in the actual creation or manufacture of the product. And obviously, you're not a manufacturer, so you're not regulated in the same way. So keep that in mind if you're a retailer or something like that. Are you muted? I think you're muted, Jade.
So I'm interested. So what are the exemptions from this? And I also asked, if you're a practitioner making product for somebody one-off, is it the same legislation? So exemptions and is a one-off product under the same? Yeah.
Okay, so let's answer the one-off product first. So for example, if you're my aromatherapist and I come in for a consultation and you make me one bottle of 4-ounce massage oil and tell me how to use it on my skin, is your question, is that covered by the law? Yes, it is. It doesn't matter if you make 1 or 1,000. If it's a consumer product and you're exchanging it for money, you're selling it, right? You're not giving it away. It's not something you're doing as a hobby or what have you. If you're selling it to a consumer, it doesn't really matter the context. It could be aromatherapy consultation. It could be out of the trunk of your car. It could be on your website, your Instagram, your TikTok. TikTok now has sales. Like you can put a sales link on your TikTok page these days. Like, how fast moving is that, right? However you sell that product, if you're exchanging it for cash, it's a sale. It's the sale of a cosmetic, and the FDA regulates that pursuant to the law. So your second question was the exemptions, right? Okay, so let's talk about the exemptions. Okay, so this is one of the key definitions in the law, and there is a small business exemption, right? Woohoo. Now, before I tell you about that, let me just shout out to some of the people who are responsible for this exemption. There have been, several laws, lawmaking all along. I have participated in a lot of the advocacy, but the Handcrafted Soap Makers Guild and Brambleberry Handcraft Supplies that sells essential oils and other ingredients and supplies has been absolutely key. And I cannot discuss this without mentioning Brambleberry. They, at their own expense, hired their own lobbyists and have gone to the mat for this small business exemption. So I just want to give shout out where shout out is due. Okay. So there is a small business exemption, and I got my notes here, so I'm just going to read it. MoCRA defines a small business as those with gross annual sales in the US, okay, for the previous 3-year period of less than $1 million. Okay, so this is do the math, right? If your gross annual sales for the previous 3 years are less than $1 million, you are exempt from certain provisions in this law, not all, and we'll talk about those in a minute. So this does not apply. This exemption, though, does not apply at all in any way to small businesses or any businesses that make products that come into contact with the mucous membrane of the eye. Okay, so if your products are designed to come into contact with the mucous membrane of the eye, I don't know, honestly, off the top of my head, I can't really think of what that might be, then you're not exempt no matter what. You make one product, you're not exempt, okay? All right, and also if your product is designed to alter the appearance for more than 24 hours, again, the devil's in the details, but if your product says, put this on your face and you'll look 20 years younger for the next week, right? If it's designed to alter your appearance for more than 24 hours to beautification, to beautify you for more than that period of time, not exempt, okay? And that's probably because some of those products contain ingredients that, are not always heavily tested. A lot of those products are usually state of the art. Some patent on some ingredient comes along and it gets put into a product. But since those ingredients are very much readily available to even the tiniest manufacturer online, it's really important that you be aware of that if you make products, okay? So that's important to understand. All right, so let me just get my notes out here. So yes, so if your gross sales are less than the amount, the $1 million over the past 3 years, then you are exempt from certain provisions. So let me share, if I could, Jade, I'll just go through some other key requirements and key provisions in the legislation, because I have 4 or 5 of them here. Okay. So we already talked about registration, the voluntary cosmetic registration program where your products are concerned. Okay, so there is a facility registration now. Okay, you are exempt if you're a small business. So if you fit the exemption that I just said to you, you don't have to do this. But I still want you to know what it is, because, hey, maybe one day your gross sales will be more than $1 million, right? So you need to, this is one of the things that I think is super useful about this law, because it will help you to, if you do not want to be required to abide by all of these laws, then you will need to make sure that you cap your sales. Okay, it's not, some people don't want to do that. So understand that if you want to grow your business to more than that threshold, this is some of the stuff that you're looking at down that 3, 4, 10, however long it takes you to get there, if that's your goal. Okay, so you will need to register your facility. And basically what this means is you basically go online at the FDA, it's not set up yet, and you register your facility. Hi, my name is Donna Maria Cosmetics. I manufacture them at 123 Main Street, New York, New York. And this is what I make. Essentially, that's it. It's just a registration. And here's the reason for this. And this is, I think it's helpful, Jade, and I hope you agree, to see like some of the background, like why are we doing this? The reason we're doing this is because if you think about it, it is sort of incredible that the regulator responsible for regulating cosmetics doesn't know how many people are making cosmetics in the US. So while we don't, always want all the, overlordish kind of thing, it does make sense that the country know how many people are doing this, because they deal with consumers. Mothers put these products on their children. So it's important to have some sort of way to look people up that you're actually a facility that's making these cosmetics. And it's wonderful, however, that because of the advocacy, the FDA or the law actually says, okay, if your gross sales do not reach a certain amount, then your risk in the marketplace does not require that you do all the other things that larger companies do. So that's kind of the logic behind it. Okay, so that's the facility registration. The product listing. Okay, so listen, every company, as I said, you've got to register your product. When you do that, you have to name a responsible person, right? A responsible person. Small businesses are exempt again, but this is what you're looking at if your business grows to that point. But again, it makes sense. Like, who's responsible? Like, who do I call if there's a problem? There should be someone at whom's door the buck stops, right? Like when I buy products, I like to be able to know who to call if there's a problem. So we kind of want to make sure that we're sort of available if there is an issue, that there's, we don't have consumers sort of having to chase under rocks to find the people that they, purchased a product from. So that's a key requirement, as well as the product listing. Okay, I already mentioned the adverse event reporting, from which no one is exempt. So let's pause on this one for a minute. Okay, so the responsible person, whoever that is, or your company, at your company, has to report serious, okay, and I'm put that in quotes, serious adverse events associated with the use of a product within 25 days of receipt of that report. So you get a report about the skin turning blue on March 1st, by March 25th, that needs to be reported. If it is serious, okay, so what is serious? Oh my gosh, we're getting into some details now. The devil is always in the details, right? But essentially, I'll get to that in a second, but just be aware that now when you get these sorts of emails, if it's serious, it has to be reported, and whether it's serious or not, you're expected to keep the record. Okay, so for small businesses, as I already defined, right, the $1 million gross, for small businesses, the record keeping requirement is 3 years. Okay, and Congress said to the FDA, once you sort all this out, you can make some more exemptions, you can make some more requirements, you can do whatever you want about this adverse reporting thing. Okay, so the last word, in other words, has not been spoken on this issue, because, as I said, Congress will be more general, the FDA will be more specific when they get around to it. Okay, all right, so let's define a serious adverse event. Okay, here is a serious adverse event that has to be reported within 25 days. Number one, life-threatening experience or death. I think we can all agree that we know that when we see it, right? Okay, second, inpatient hospitalization. We can all verify that, no big mystery there. Number three, a persistent or significant disability or incapacity. Disability, incapacity, that's pretty extreme. That's not, my skin itches, right? Okay, it may not even be my hair fell out. I don't know. Is that a disability or an incapacity? I would say no, but again, I guess it depends. All right, number four, a congenital abnormality or birth defect or significant disfigurement. We kind of pretty much know when we see that. Those are rare, right? A lot of these are rare, like from cosmetics especially. Like, how many people go to the hospital because of a cosmetic, right? So far, so good, right? Okay, hair loss. And let me just tell you about hair loss. Hair loss is big, because over the past 5 years, so many companies have put out products designed to grow your hair. And people pour that stuff on their head like water, and their hair falls out. Okay. And we've seen, and so imagine this, and you may have seen it. Okay. Someone goes on social media. Yesterday, their hair was glamorous and beautiful on their date. The next day, it's gone. That is dramatic, and it gets a lot of attention. So hair loss doesn't have to be a big deal hair loss. It's just hair loss. And I think Congress was general about that because hair loss makes a lot of people upset, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they've given the FDA the requirement to put some structure around that. So if you make hair care products, just be aware of that. Okay, persistent rashes or appearance alterations. Persistent rashes or appearance alterations, and then also infections. Okay, now we should not be putting products out there that are not properly preserved if they need a preservative. Not all products need one. If your product contains water, needs some sort of a preservative. Other products that don't contain water, probably a good idea to preserve them as well. But because bacterial infections happen, and you want to minimize the possibility of that. So those are the, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 definitions of serious adverse events. Okay, there you go. So
That's a lot. I mean,
it's a
obviously
lot.
most of them, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, well, that's probably never going to happen. So that's a good
Mhm.
thing, right?
Yes, it is. And one of the advocacy pieces that we used for years and keep using is, look, we don't want to overgeneralize, but the truth of the matter is that small manufacturers are not using weird ingredients. Most of us are using stuff that we grow in the backyard, or maybe it's grown at a farmer's market, someone else's backyard. They're kitchen ingredients, they're food grade oils, vegetable oils, even animal oils. They're, like what is it called? Why am I not thinking of it? Like
Tallow.
lard or tallow.
Tallow.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Right. These are things that are rather been around for a billion years. So
Mhm.
for the most part, essential oils, same thing. So
Mhm.
for so much of what we make, we don't use weird stuff, and that's why there are so few issues. So,
Mhm.
but as technology advances and we have access to more ingredients and more things, I'm pretty sure that the law is designed to make sure that it's not onesie choosy. You want to make sure everybody is captured into this, and the small business exemption is what comes along and makes it less onerous for very small businesses. So yes, okay. So yeah, Cole,
Uh,
if you make hair dye, like I'm not going to go into this, but there's some special things for hair dye unless you make hair dye. I don't honestly know what they are because I don't really work with people that make hair dye. That's not the same as henna. Okay, that's different. But if you make
mhm.
hair dye, like go find out more. But if you don't, coal tar in particular hair dye has some special things going on with it.
Okay. I have one question. So the $1 million mark, is that per year over 3 years, or is that $1 million over a 3-year period?
It's the latter.
Okay.
You look at your gross sales over the past 3 years, and if they don't, for each of those years, if they don't go over $1 million for each of those years, then you are exempt.
Okay, great. And it sounds like there's still a lot of work to be done on the FDA's behalf. So,
Mhm.
but how much time do we have to update our business to comply with new laws for the ones that are absolutely required of everybody? And yeah, all of
Yeah.
them, I guess. So,
Okay. Yes. Okay. So looking down at my notes here. Okay. So this law goes into effect 12 months after it passed, which was, I think it was December 29th. I think that was the date. I'll look in my notes here and see if I wrote it down. 29th. Yes. December 29th, 2023. That's when it goes into effect. So you have some time to assess your business and the requirements and so forth, and know, to what extent this applies to you. So December 29th. Let me give you some other dates here that the FDA or that Congress initiated here. The FDA is going to be implementing what's called rulemaking procedures. over a starting, well, they could start at any time, but apparently they have to do it by December 2023. And let me tell you what rulemaking is. Generally, basically what it means is, okay, Congress says, FDA, go figure this out. Here's the main laws. You go figure out all the details. In order for the FDA to figure out those details, they have to talk to the people in the industry. Okay, so here's what we're thinking about this issue. What do you guys think? And then we, as in manufacturers, have, usually it's 30 days, sometimes it's 60 days to answer. Okay, in writing, like here's what we think you should do. Here's why you shouldn't do this because it would be awful. Here's why you should do this because it would be great. And so the FDA then takes all of those comments, what they call comments, and they will promulgate a new rule. So it's called a notice of proposed rulemaking. So pursuant to the law, they will propose new rules, and then we will all look at the rules and usually go, don't do any of that. And the FDA says, okay, we're listening to you, so we're going to change it a little bit, and they'll eventually come out with a final rule. And the final rule is what the regulation is. All right, so you have your law, then you have your regulation. We follow both, but the real nuts and bolts of it is usually going to be in the regulation. So for example, an example of this is the registration. Okay, so registration, we can all say name, address, phone number, right? We can kind of guess that, but the details are going to be what the FDA says. What else, if anything, does that registration have to also contain? Like every single ingredient in the product, all the way down to, every single thing. Are there any exemptions from that? They will put meat on those bones. Yeah, so that's the general overview. Like the trigger time is December 29th, 2023.
So the FDA is currently putting meat onto the bone, so to speak.
Well, they haven't, I don't think they've done anything so far other than to stop the voluntary registrations. Okay, I don't think they have. Sometimes you don't find out for a while if they've done anything, but I do know, because I got a notice about it, that they did stop the voluntary registration. So that just means they've started, because that's a big deal. Registration is a very big deal. And it's going to be just as hard for them to do that as it is for us, because imagine the database they're going to have to keep.
Yeah.
Right. So, so yes, that has already, and maybe that's why they stopped, because they're like, look, we don't want all these companies coming in here registering when we need to be working on a new process. So that may explain why they stopped. But I was still very surprised, because I thought the easiest thing for them to do would be flip a switch on the program that was already there and change it from voluntary to required and call it a day. But who knows what they're doing.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what do you recommend is like the first thing we should do to comply with the new laws?
The first thing I recommend is to make sure that you have some sort of process in place to receive and categorize and maintain any sort of customer complaint about a problem with the product, anything. And as long like the law doesn't say it has to be in a file cabinet or it has to be digitized. It doesn't say. Like, you create your own system. Now, until maybe the FDA will come out and say, here's the system, but I highly doubt that they will do that. They're not going to get that micromanaged over our businesses. But if you create what works for you in your business, it could be paper. If your business is really small and you don't hardly get any complaints, it could be paper in a file cabinet. However you want to do it, but however you just maintain those records in a consistent way. And, you have, the rest of the year to kind of try new things and see what works, and just put into your systems, into the structure of your business, what actually works for you in that regard. So that's the first thing that I will do. And I would suggest that you do, and let me go back over here. Okay. Let me mention one other key requirement that is key. Okay. Another key requirement is good manufacturing practices. Now, what does that mean? Good manufacturing practices are currently good manufacturing practices. They are voluntary, they're guidelines. That's what they're called, guidelines. And they are set up by the FDA, and they are not required by law that we follow them. However, to follow them makes some sense because it's almost like a handbook for good manufacturing. Like, who doesn't want to do that if you're manufacturing products? So you can look up right now FDA good manufacturing practices, and you can, if you don't already have practices or systems in your business, I would suggest you start following to the extent you can, because they're not written, they're written for bigger companies. However, the principles are clear, like clean surfaces, right? Wash the bowl after you use it. I mean, some of it's really basic, but unless you have these practices in your business now, having to have them later will be like a big thing. So use the next 6 or 7 months to just put some of them in place. You probably already do them. Like, I'm sure you're washing the stuff, right? You're not using, I don't know, absorbable things. You're using stainless steel or glass or whatever it is, so that you can be sure that everything's clean. You're washing things. You're not using the same sponge all the time. You're spraying things down. You're not making products in the same place, where your parakeet's hopping around on the counter, right? Those sorts of basic things is essentially what the guidelines are. And so getting used to those is probably a good idea, because when they become part of the regulation and the requirements, it probably won't be that different. So you can look those up. They're not that extensive. I think they may be 7 or 8 pages long. Read through them, do what you can. Like, if you see something that says, everything has to be, I don't know what. Oh, here's an example. One of them, and I can't quote it, but one of them basically says that the ingredients need not to be stored on the floor. They need to be elevated. All right, so get yourself a bookshelf, get yourself some sort of stand so you can elevate them. That's kind of the basic stuff. When an ingredient comes in, you log it. Today I got 5 pounds of coconut oil from, Donna Maria's Coconut Oil Company. It came in at 5:30. It was 5 pounds. Here's a picture of the jar, or, some sort of, inventory. So what came in. And then when you use that ingredient, what product you put it in, right? We put this in this batch of coconut oil cream or whatever that we made today. So we can keep track if there's ever a question. Oh, I know which oil was used in that batch because I put this oil in that batch. So there may be some adjustments that need to be made, but for a large part, I do think that some of those adjustments are good for us, because I sleep better at night when I have systems and practices in place in my business. So if a customer does have a question, I'd like to be able to say to a customer, here's how we do things. We don't just bring the coconut oil in or the essential oil in and stick it in a sunny window, right? We put it in the refrigerator. Or it's, that, especially in the aromatherapy world, that's going to make our customers see that as a potential reason to buy from us, right? So these sorts of systems, while they may seem, why do I have to do that? We can turn a lot of this stuff into marketing positives for our customers, and increase trust level. They don't have to know it's required. They can just see us doing it.
Right. I like
right?
that. Marketing positives.
Yes, because I think we have to use, we're small businesses, right? Every single piece of leverage we can get, every single way that we can get a customer to trust us, like they're putting this stuff on their skin, right? They're massaging this stuff on their bodies. So the more they trust us, the better, the more they'll buy, and the more they'll tell their friends, well, I like to buy from this company because they really take care of these oils. They're not just sitting on a shelf somewhere in a plastic container. You know what I mean? All the things that we can use to encourage people to see us as the most reliable, trustworthy source for the products that they're going to use to enhance their lives. And we want them to use them every day, right? So they use them up and buy some more. So we love the sound of that, right? So find ways in your business, to answer your question in this way as well, Jade, find ways in your business to turn these, hey, that's a good marketing positive for me. I'm going to use that. Create a graphic. The top 10 ways we make sure you get the freshest ingredients. Right? You can use that good manufacturing thing. You don't have to make it up. Just do that stuff.
I love that.
So hopefully
Thank you.
that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah, and by the way, the final good manufacturing rule is not due till the end of 2025, right? So you have some time here. This is the Congress has not flipped a switch on anyone and said, do this now. So there's time to read the law. There's time to, meet with your mastermind partners or your brainstorm partners or what have you, and think about how you want to handle what sorts of structure you want to put around this in your particular business. Probably nobody here uses talc. There's a talc requirement. I'm going to kind of skip that. Let me just mention this. Okay, they're phasing out animal testing, right? That's good. No real requirement there, but that's kind of a nice thing to know. The law also addressed that. What phasing out means, we don't know yet, right? Okay, another key requirement is preemption. Okay, and this I mentioned earlier that some states have their own laws. Okay, so if you live in a state that has its own cosmetics laws already, if those laws conflict in any way with the new federal law, the state law still is in effect. In other words, Congress said, hey, look, if a state has already said ABC 1, 2, 3, we're not messing with that. Okay, we're not messing with that. If it's a conflict that requires that only one can be done, then the federal one will control, right? But that's very rare that happens. So just keep that in mind. And as I mentioned earlier, there are some states, it's not a lot, but Florida and California are key. We don't have time to go into those details, but if you are located in those states or you sell products into those states from someplace else, there is a whole bevy of laws that already, before this law was passed last year, that already apply. So you'll want to make sure you take a look at those. And then I think there was one more thing. Hold on this is key. All right. Up until this law, the FDA could not issue a mandatory product recall. They could only issue a voluntary product recall. So the companies where, you probably heard about this. I think it's the Wen hair care company. Okay, this is just an example. So that people started complaining that their hair was falling out. Today, the FDA can mandatory recall, like all that shampoo, get it out of the hands of consumers. You see this on the news sometimes, right, with different things. The FDA has issued a mandatory recall. It usually happens with drugs, right? Well, they did not have the authority, because the authority comes from Congress. They didn't have the authority to do that for cosmetics. Now they do, or they will when this, at the end of this year, they will be able to do that. Up until now, it's just been, dear Donna Maria's Hair Care, you got a problem. You need to recall those products. Let's work together to make that happen, right? Most people would work together to make that happen. So it's a voluntary thing, but it will soon be with the passage of the regulations and so forth. And December 29th this year, the FDA will be able to send you a letter that says recall them and recall them by, in the next 15 days. So it'll be mandatory. They won't have to bargain with you anymore. But again, how often does this happen for, very small businesses? It doesn't, but you should know about that, because we should all know about the structure of the industry that we're participating in. So that's the final sort of big change that I'll mention here.
Thank you for that. So I find it fascinating. It sounds like there's still so much kind of unfolding around all of this. So how can someone stay up to date with what's happening with the FDA regulations as they go into effect?
Mute myself here. Here's what I suggest, okay? If you go to fda.gov/cosmetics, let me make sure that's still, yes, fda.gov/cosmetics. You can sign up for their, I don't know if they call it a newsletter, some sort of thing, where you can sort of get this information or updates and so forth delivered straight to your inbox. And so you can do that. The other thing you can do is you can read up on things there. So for example, when you go to that page, Jay, can I share my screen?
Do you
I
have
think,
it on?
let me share my
Yep.
screen.
Yep.
Here we go.
Perfect.
This is
Perfect.
fda.gov/cosmetics. Okay, it takes you straight here. So there's like a little featured article there. But if you just navigate, you'll see allergens, fragrances. This is a thing, like you've probably all heard about fragrances being an issue in cosmetics, safety of cosmetic products and ingredients. Those are just categories. So anytime you can go in there and take a look at those. Okay, look at this, MoCRA, the expansion of the FDA's authority. Okay, so this is probably fairly new. Well, it has to be fairly new because the law just was passed. There we go. Look at this,
Wow.
March
Yeah.
27th. Okay, so that means that may not have been when it was originally written, but they updated it. So they'll tell you when it's current through, they check and make sure. But I would read this. Like I would read through this. See, there's some of the things I just talked about, the mandatory recall authority, the registration. There's exemptions, right? So you've got some exemptions down there. And so you can even send the FDA questions. Check it out. Okay. So there's the voluntary, look, we stopped accepting and processing submissions to the voluntary registration program. So as Jay just mentioned, all of this is in some flux. Some pieces of it are in big states of flux, others are not. But if you, again, create a system for yourself in your business, if you make cosmetics, to check in, go there once a week, maybe have a look around once a month, whatever it is. And just be informed about some of the things that are important. And one of the great things about, the internet today is that I think regulators are doing a much better job than they've ever done before of opening up. Like there's an email address there. We can email them and ask them a question, and they're not going to give you legal advice. But if you do have a legitimate question, my business makes this much money and I'm not clear on that $1 million exemption. Can you help me understand? They will answer that for you. Like that's great because that's not legal advice. That's just explaining what the law says. So it's a great thing that they actually will respond. And I've seen this not just at the FDA, but I've seen it in other regulatory capacities as well, that they've opened up more than ever before to make it possible to get some response from somebody, which let me just tell you, I've been around for a long time, Jade too. They were like, I don't know, on top of Mount Olympus or something. You could, right, Jade, you could never get in touch with anybody about anything. So this is, I think, one of the good things about the internet and how we as small businesses can use it to our advantage.
I love that too. So I will say for myself, just in case any of you are also having an experience of a little anxiety over this. So Donna Maria, I'm interested, with the new laws affecting small companies or businesses, what do you think are some of the positive benefits and what could be a negative for, there's a little sense of relief that the $1 million mark is there. And then, so what do you see? You've been involved with the industry all these years. You've obviously been involved with the unfolding of this legislation, positives and negatives.
Whoa, okay, Jay. You asked me a good question. Let me ponder for a minute. Okay. I do think that I just mentioned one of the positives is that we can go to the regulator and ask a question. And they have websites where you can like type in a word like essential oils or henna or whatever you want and get some authoritative information from the regulator about what's required. So if you're starting a business, how great is that? Because if you want to make a certain type of product, and you don't know a lot about how it's regulated, you can look it up before you spend $1 million trying to make it. And you can go, oh, I don't want to be involved with that, right? You want to have $1 million business? Now you know. It's a good idea. It's a lot of cash, right? But you have more requirements. And if you think about it, it's because you have more products out in the world. The more money you make, the more products you're selling. The more products you're selling, the more risk there is. You've got to make a decision as a business owner how much risk you want to take on. Well, the more products you're putting out into the marketplace, obviously, the more risk there is for everyone. So that's another thing that I think is positive as well, is that you can go there and check things out. Another one is you have time. Like, you're not flipping a switch on your business here, you have time. And I think a third one, Jade, honestly, is the people that you and your organization bring together to help each other, right? 20 years ago, like when Jade and I first started, like if you didn't have somebody's phone number, you couldn't ask a question. You were out of luck. If you didn't spend $1,000 to go to that conference once a year, you were stuck. But now you can have Jade as a resource and some of the other people that she brings together, and you can say, hey, we make similar types of products. Let's tackle this together. Let's take some time. Let's look at it and see what we need to do. You can cut the time that it takes for you to do it in half, and you also have some great support. It's just kind of what we do in the Indie Business Network as well. We support each other. And so that is invaluable when it comes to things like this. And I think another positive is that there is that exemption for small businesses. Most of the aromatherapy related companies that I know, they want to be profitable. Don't get me wrong. We don't want to lose money. We want to be in the black, right? But usually that $1 million sounds great, but it's not something we're going to break our necks over. Okay, every business is different, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to achieve that sort of financial income for your business. It's great, especially in this world, like a woman being able to make a business that makes $1 million a year. I'm clapping all day long for that. But if that's not something that you want, then you do have some exemptions and more flexibility here that you can run your business without some of the requirements that other larger companies have. And I think that's a positive as well. So let me take off my rose-colored glasses and say that the truth of the matter is, it was simpler before. It was simpler, right? Voluntary registration was, voluntary. We never have to think about it. Good manufacturing practices, also voluntary. They still are under the exemption. But now that they're a real thing, like the scrutiny level is going to be a little bit higher. If we got an email from someone that said they had a little rash, we might apologize and send them a new product, right? Maybe we would change our formula because we realize, oh, maybe that ingredient is an issue because I got, more than one complaint about that over the past. Like, we need to be paying obvious attention to that. Well, now we also have to keep a record of it. But if you think about it, that's more information for us, right? We keep records of what our customers are telling us. It's a good thing to do that, because that's what gives us the information we need to improve our products. If we get one complaint about a product, probably not that big a deal. But if you get 3 or 4 over, a couple month period about the same product, we should pay attention to that. And so keeping these types of records is one of the ways that we can inform ourselves as the leaders of our businesses, because we are more than makers. We are also business owners. We are leaders. People look to us to tell them what to do because they don't know. And there's a level of responsibility that comes along with that empowers us to help people even more when we know that we have certain structures in our business that, quite frankly, can help us sleep a little bit better at night as well.
Absolutely.
But it is different. So you're right. It is different.
Yeah. And a question not on our list of things to talk about. How does the Indie Business Network, how are you supporting your community? Is there a benefit to small manufacturers becoming members? So
yes. Well, we have kind of broken down the implementation into 4 quarters, like starting with January. So we kind of created a basic framework. Again, every business is different, so we're not here to tell people what to do, but a basic framework, like first quarter do this, second quarter do this, third quarter do this, and by December 29th, you're just, putting a bow on the package. So you're not waiting until December to figure it all out. Like, you're looking at pieces of this law, pieces of it that are coming into play as you move forward, and adjusting your business on a slower, less stressful basis. So okay, here's the requirements. Here's what I'm exempt from. Here's what I'm not exempt from. Here's what how I'm gonna handle what I'm not exempt from. And here's where I'm gonna, I'm gonna go to the FDA's website once a month and make sure I'm gonna subscribe to their little notification so I can know what is going on. And those notifications are good. They'll tell you, like, here's what's happening. We issued a notice of proposed rulemaking. As I mentioned earlier, that's what it's called. So you can be aware of it. Doesn't mean you have to become a lawyer. Okay. But to be aware, yes. I mean, thank goodness, right? Like, who wants to do that? I get it. But it is nice to be able to know that those resources are out there, and that if you just pace yourself, I'm going to do a little bit this quarter, a little bit this month, or what have you, then you can. It's like, think of it like this: social media. New piece of social media comes out, right? Most of the time, we all kind of go, "Ooh, people are making sales on," like when TikTok came out, like a lot of people rushed to it, right? But you can't drink the ocean and learn how to use TikTok all at one time. It's kind of a process, right? Because it's always changing. So it's the same sort of thing. Stick your toe in the water, set aside 2 hours next weekend. If you've never looked at this stuff before, I would suggest just going to the FDA's website, clicking on that MoCRA link, the one that I just showed you that was updated March 27th, read that. Get out a cup of coffee. It'll take you 20 minutes.
Okay.
And don't look at it for another couple of weeks. Just familiarize yourself if you're not familiar at all. Go meditate, take a little break. It's you're not alone. Okay, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
that
not.
might be one of the benefits of joining indie business, correct? I mean, just
Well,
to
I
have
think so.
I would say it's a great support. So,
It
and
is.
indie business is just indiebusiness.com. Is that how
It's
people would
in,
find
I'll put the link in the chat if I could. It's indiebusinessnetwork.com.
indie
There's the
business?
link. I just put it in there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's
And
indiebusinessnetwork.com, and there's a join link, whether you're
okay.
on your phone or wherever, there's a join link. And we also have a coupon code. Jay, can I share that?
Absolutely. And I'll send this out in an email as well, so everyone will get
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay, let me get the coupon code. Just a second. Someone just sent it to me here. It is, if you sign up today by 11:59 p.m., it's 20% off. And the coupon code is, hold on one second, IBN20 off. IBN,
IBN.
yeah, which is short for Indie Business Network. IBN, I'll put it in the chat as well, Jade, so you
Yes,
can
I'll
just
have
cut and
it.
paste it. It's IBN, the number 20, and then off, OFF. So that will give you a 20% discount on your first year of annual dues. And we talk about this stuff in our Facebook group all the time. I have actually a weekly meeting personally with my members that's included in your membership. I give a mini keynote presentation. It's not always about regulatory issues. Sometimes it's about marketing, sales, the new TikTok thing that just came out, those sorts of things. I share tips to help you grow your business, but you can ask any question you want. So you can follow up if you want with more questions about this or whatever it is that you need help with in your business.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. And I know we're at 2:00 now, but there are a couple of questions that have come through.
Okay.
One is does this pertain to soap producers, like people who make soap?
If the soap is also a cosmetic, yes. So if it's just soap, and it's only designed to clean you, because that's what soap does, soap cleans. But if it's also designed to beautify, like it's moisturizing and all that, then yes, it does. And I would generally say there is no reason not to treat your soap like it's a cosmetic, because people want to know the ingredients. They want to know that it's safely manufactured. If you get a complaint about your soap, you want to make sure you make a record of it, right? And so while there is still, the obvious distinction, I'm not really sure it's worthwhile to consider that a distinction without a difference or with a difference, but there is still, soap cleans, and soap that moisturizes and has other, effects that are useful besides cleaning, that's a cosmetic. And I know very few people that are selling a body care product that's soap that they don't say it's good for your skin. That makes it a
Right.
cosmetic.
Right.
So hopefully
Great.
that helps.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does this law also pertain to anointing oils used in religious services?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay. The
Mhm.
answer is maybe. And the reason I say that is because it depends on what claims are made about the product. So if the product is, I don't know, lavender oil or whatever, and it's, you put it on your skin, it depends on what you say about that product. Um, so I can't really answer that
Right.
because I don't know anything about the product. However, let me say this. If I bought any product that somebody told me to put on my face and there was a problem, even if they didn't tell me to rub it in or that it would make me pretty, I don't care. If there's
Right.
a problem, I'm coming for you. So I
Right.
think it's really important to err on the side of, if you're telling somebody to put it on their face or their skin or their husband's face or whatever, I would want to have some of these systems in place, and I well, I can't say for sure because I don't know what your exact claims are. Um, if it's designed to be rubbed on, sprayed on, sprinkled on, the FDA would probably find a way to regulate that product.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's a chakra oil or
Yes,
it's still
yes,
being applied to the skin.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay, I love that. And I know we didn't get into Florida. But there is a question. Is there any similar small business exemption in Florida? I wasn't aware Florida and California
Hmm.
had different
Hmm.
laws. So I don't know if you want
Hmm.
to answer that quickly or just,
Yes, I
yeah.
can tell you that boo-hoo, there is no exemption in those states.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
is it okay, here's one of the differences, okay? Um, Florida's law requires that that you cannot make a cosmetic legally and manufacture it in your home. Okay? Doesn't mean you can't do it. You're just not supposed to do it in your home.
Hmm.
And you're supposed to get an inspection. Now, I have known some of my members in Florida who've had an inspection, right? Not in their home because you can't do it in your home, but they have like a loft space or a maker space community where, or maybe they have a baker's kitchen or something that they use once a week or what have you to make their products. So I am familiar through some of my members with what that inspection is like. And while one after another, there's this high level of anxiety, the truth of the matter is they come in, do a little white glove test, don't see any bugs flying around. Everything's clean. It looks like you're wearing hair nets. You got your basic stuff in place to make sure that the products are not, manufactured in an unsafe way.
Yeah.
You're washing everything. There's a dishwasher or what have you. You pay, I can't remember what the fee is. There's always a fee because there's a
It's
fee, right?
always a fee.
It's not that much, overall speaking. And it's not that bad. I mean, they don't have an incentive to have fewer businesses in their state.
No.
So, and then in a couple of cases, they've gone through and inspected and said, well, that's great. These three things need to be fixed. Your
Right.
dishwasher, you need hot water or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you get that fixed. And that's the only inspection. I don't think they re-inspect. California is always special.
More. Yeah.
Okay. It's always special. But that's just an example. And that's actually the main thing is that you can't do it in your house.
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
an inspection requirement.
Yeah. But one of the things I appreciate about North Carolina is that
Hmm.
there is a commercial kitchen you can rent.
Yes. Yeah.
There's sometimes places where farmers manufacture food. Sometimes you can rent those places to manufacture your product. So I hope that continues to increase across the country, to have commercial kitchens available to
It
small
is.
manufacturers. Yeah.
It is becoming a really big business boom for people who own real estate
Yeah.
because after the pandemic, they're trying to figure out what to do with all this space. And I am seeing these sorts of co-working. I'm in a co-working space now, but it's not for manufacturing. But what I am seeing is in many cities, big and small, these maker spaces that are coming
Wow.
into play. There's even a new one called the Maker Hood. Like, have you
Ooh,
heard of the
I
Maker
love
Hood?
that.
They're
No.
brand new. They're brand new. So, and I think they're starting in New Jersey. The Maker Hood is a space where there's group manufacturing space, but they also have living spaces attached to them.
Wow. Wow.
So it's going to
Interesting.
become, if you plan on being in business for a while, it's really something, look, because you can share your costs, you can share the risks, you can share everything, and you get your manufacturing out of your personal space. And I know there are benefits to having it in your personal space, but as a business grows, usually, and you don't have to grow to $1 million to have this problem. You do not want to be stepping in shea butter, or, your family, your kids, your spouse, your partner, whatever. It can become, because I've been there, it can become a challenge to have that stuff in the kitchen when, it's time for spaghetti, right? So it's a wonderful thing that I see coming into play. And so if you live in a place, you can probably Google or read the local paper or what have you, go to the Chamber of Commerce, and you'll probably see some people connected with some of those spaces are coming into play. And I think I agree with you, Jade. It's wonderful
Yeah. Yeah.
for people who need it. Yeah, for people who don't have the space.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how many people make product across the United States, but it's a lot. It's a lot of people. So
It
I think it's
definitely
great.
is. Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
I think you've answered all these questions beautifully. I feel like, yeah, it's been incredibly helpful. I took a lot of notes. So, and thank you for the resources. For those of you who are here with us right now, you will receive an email. I'll include information about the Indie Business Network, as well as the current coupon.
Thank you, Jade. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for doing that. I appreciate it.
absolutely. Well, it's important, I think. So, and thank you so much, Donna
Thank
Maria.
you. Thank you for having me. And Barb, Courtney, Dawn, Deborah, Hannah, Angelina, Melissa, everyone. Can't see all the names, but I'm so excited to meet you in this way. And, good luck to your businesses. We are the engine. We are the engine collectively that is just spurring this economy on. It's such an exciting time to, have your own source of income and be able to create something on your own that has your brand message and got your heart into it. Like, it's such an exciting time for that. So kudos to all of you for pursuing your dreams and doing it together in this community with Jade.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'm just starting to do more manufacturing of product at the farm. So I agree.
Yay.
Beautiful.
Yay.
Beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Thank everyone for attending, and we'll sign off now. So thank you. Have a good day, everyone.